So I made the mistake, apparently, of informing people that I was an attorney, and Rose said, "You shouldn't have said that." And it's like, what? But I'm proud of being an attorney. But most people think of attorneys, ooh, he's an attorney, blah, 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 background. But this somewhat relates to my story. My father had an 8th grade education, and my mother sewed sleeves on shirts, and I'm the youngest of 7 poor children. And I went back to law school later in life and all that stuff. But that's not what this is about. That's my job now. But when I was 16, one of my first jobs, I had worked construction for a while, and that sucked. And I drove a school bus, which I did while I was in, it sucked too, but you got to tell people to sit down and shut up. And which has worked out well over the years. I've learned how to do that very well. But when I was 16, I realized the summer that after I was fully 16 by then, I decided that I needed a job that really paid money. And so I got a job with a local manufacturing company. And I'm from middle of nowhere, South Carolina, and in the upper part of South Carolina. And down there, it was textiles. And so I got a job in a cotton mill. And if you've ever been inside the cotton mill, these days new cotton mills don't compare to the old ones. But the old ones, they're loud and there was dust everywhere and people got their hands ripped off and, it was a great job. And so I went and applied for a job and they gave me a job. They said, okay, you're going to be showing up and, your supervisor will tell you what to do. And oh, by the way, you're going to be working 3rd shift. And if you've ever worked 3rd shift, there's a different breed of people that works 3rd shift. And I was about to become one of them at the age of 16. And probably in this had a feeling theme, I probably should have had a feeling. I was 16, what the hell, I was looking for a job. And so, 11 o'clock that first night I went in, and they told me what I was going to be doing. And my job was blowing off. And I kind of looked at them and, you're going to be blowing off. Blowing what? Off. And so they took me to this pile, literally a pile of air hose about this high with this blowing off. And they said, drag this, and you're going to be working in the weaving room. And you're going to blow the cotton off of those things so that you blow all the cotton off the working parts. Now, I got this down to a science, so I can tell you that this is how one weaving machine back in those days sounded, where there was wood things knocking a shuttle out and back and things going like this. And, you go down to the River Arts District now and you see somebody go, cheek, cheek. Well, in those machines and those mills, they go like this. Only there are literally acres of them. Literally acres of them. From one side of this building to this far distance, you can see little people. Oh my God, you've got these things in. So it sounds like, because it has no effect on it. And so my job was to start my shift at 11 o'clock that night and work till 7 the next morning. And I did that. And I would start and I would blow off all the cotton and grease off of these machines. And basically I blew it on to me. And I was the blowing off person because there was a sweeper that came behind me and swept up all this stuff. And I was below sweeper. Sweeper was above me in the hierarchy of the cotton. I was blowing off. And I did that for a while. And experienced things where they had little smoking spots where all the people would sit over there in little spots and smoke and then talk. And the woman with the beehive hairdo and the low-cut top would be kind of all the guys are leering at her and smoking cigarettes. You know what y'all do? Yeah. And I drug my hose, long hose hundreds and hundreds of feet of hose, and I would drag it and blow off, and, and the people that they would torture the blowing off guy by stepping on your hose. Somewhere back there, they kind of reach back there and step on your hose, so you'd be going, what the hell? And then you would just, ah! People over your stomach. They really got a lot of fun out of it. Until one day I just took my hose and just went right across, the air just went right across the threads, and that little flag goes up that says broken thread. And so that guy had to work for hours to put those threads back together. I should have had a feeling when they did that. At break time, 2 o'clock in the morning was the first break. You would go out and sit outside with other losers working third shift. And so when I first started going out there, there was this guy I knew from high school. He always had this nice car, and I thought, wow, that's one of the reasons. You think he's a nice car, he's got a nice job. He worked third shift in a cotton mill, and I got to see him. I can't remember his name now, but I can still see him. And the first night I went out to my 2 o'clock break, I sat outside and I got a Coke and something to eat, and I'm sitting outside, and it's like, God, there's 3 hours down of hell. And there he's over there tearing out a little Cheetos man out of the bag of Cheetos. I don't even know I don't eat Cheetos to this day, but there's a little man on the back of the Cheetos bag, and he was trying to tear it out, the plastic, trying to tear it without getting into the, I thought, well, that's an interesting way to divert yourself for a few minutes while you're on break at 2 o'clock in the morning. Whatever. The next night, I go back out there, he's tearing the Cheetos man out. The next night, I go out there, he's tearing the Cheetos man out. He was trying to reach the perfect Cheeto man by tearing out the Cheeto man. That was what he did on his 2 o'clock break. I should have had a feeling. So, then, just a few days after that, there were a variety of things that go on in a cotton mill. I was in the section. And no, by the way, I'm sorry, I got promoted. The sweeper quit. I got promoted to sweeper. And my job was to start at one end, and my job, they told me they wanted me to be at the other side of the weaving room by 7 o'clock next morning. My 8-hour shift was to sweep. That's how long it took to sweep that one room. And so, I had been promoted to sweeper, and I went out, and I'd done something. I'd put some stuff in a pile for somebody else that had a shovel. They were the shoveler guy. He was above me. And I pushed some stuff over, and it was a 2 o'clock shift, and there was a kind of a pile of people gathering around, and they were getting ready to go on their 2 o'clock break. And I saw them as I was kind of fishing up, and they were over there standing around. And when you first walked in to the building, there were a variety of machines, and one of the machines was this thing that they would put wooden spindles out. When they put the thread, they put it on wooden spindles, and they'd unwind them, and at the end there'd be this little bit left. And so they would take these wooden spindles and dump them into this bin, and then it would go up. It's come out, shake them and sort them out into this little conveyor, and it would go up probably about as high as those pipes up there. And at the top of that was this really little tiny cockpit where somebody climbed up there and operated. I don't really know what they did. I didn't participate in that. That was above my pay grade. And there was a guy there that sat in that cockpit, and I'd seen him before, and I kind of knew he was up there, but it was kind of odd. He was retarded, and I don't know if that's the word, but that was the word that we used back then. He was handicapped. He was challenged, and he sat in this little tiny cockpit running this thing. And he would sit up there and he would do his job. And the reason I never really talked to him, he didn't come out. And so this 2 o'clock break, I got through and I saw them over there, and they were casually, several of them, just talking. They were just talking, and but he was sitting up there in that cockpit. I'll step over this one. He was up there in that cockpit. They were reaching down in the bin and just kind of casually talking and throwing these wooden spindles at the handicapped guy in the cockpit. And then, you know, they were just kind of doing it casually and just, you know, hitting him, and he would, there he was running his little machine and doing his little thing, he'd get hit. And I walked up, and the supervisor was standing there, my boss, the supreme boss, was standing there, you know, tossing him at the handicapped guy, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I walked up, and I thought to myself, this is crazy. And so I went up to the supervisor, and I said, I quit. And he said, what? Because he couldn't hear because it was really loud, but I quit. You can't do that. And I said, you watch me. And I walked out the door, passed, and I can still see him leaning up against the wall, the guy tearing the Cheetos bag, the Cheetos man out of the Cheetos bag. And I walked out, and I got in my car, and had a 65 Plymouth Valiant with a 225 slant 6, 3-speed on the column. And I burned as much rubber as that 225 engine would burn, getting the hell out of that parking lot. And I drove just a short distance to where I live, not far away. And I walked in, and it was covered with grease and cotton, and I walked in, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, a little after, and my father came out. And my father was a good bit older than me. I was the youngest of 7 kids. So he came out in the nighttime in the hallway, and it was just by the moon, I guess the moonlight, it was just enough light in the hallway. And he's standing there in his boxer shorts and his white beater t-shirt. And he said, what's going on? And I said, I quit. And I was expecting him to just, you know, you got to earn a living, you know, you got to pay for your whatever. And he stood there in the hallway, and he looked at me, and he said, good. And he turned around and he went back to bed. That's my story.